This week I saw a very interesting uh, editorial come out from the National Center for Science Education. Now, this is a group that characterizes itself in this way. The NCSE provides information and advice as the premier institution dedicated to keeping evolution in the science classroom and creationism out. So they are very explicit about their purpose. It's to promote evolutionary biology and to keep creationism out of the classroom. And therefore, it was all the more remarkable, this editorial that they issued by Daryl Domning, called Winning Their Hearts and Minds, Who Should Speak for Evolution? And in this editorial, he argues that we should no longer have people like Richard Dawkins and other secularists leading the charge for teaching and promoting evolutionary theory. Rather, we need to turn to theistic evolutionists as the spokesman for this movement. This is what he writes. Book reviews in recent issues of the reports that they publish have showcased a growing number of authors and reviewers who advocate some form of theistic evolution. However, other recent books by Richard Dawkins, Daniel Dennett, and other militant atheist advocates of evolution have attracted much more media attention. Naturally, since extreme views always sell more newspapers than moderate ones. Moderate views on creation versus evolution are not in short supply. Yet despite the Gallup polls consistently showing 35 to 40% of Americans somewhere between the poles of special creationism and strictly materialistic evolutionism, with only 9 to 15% for the latter view, the atheistic view, this reality is studiously ignored both by creationists and by materialists, like Dawkins and others. This not only polarizes the debate unnecessarily, but fundamentally misrepresents it. To break this impasse and move toward diffusing evolution as an explosive social and educational issue, I propose the perhaps shocking idea that it is time for theistic evolutionists to take over from atheists as the public face of evolution advocacy. So he's saying now we need to have theists as the public face and the public spokesman of evolutionary biology. Now, this is really an incredible change, I think, quite a different proposal. He goes on to say, as long as the secularists insist on prosecuting the war unilaterally, they will not prevail. The only hope for a successful outcome lies with a coalition. The secularists must ally themselves with, indeed yield leadership to, theistic evolutionists who understand the creationists' religious culture, speak their religious language, and can engage them on their home turf. What I am proposing, he says, is simply that those who embrace theistic evolution, Christians especially, shed whatever shyness they have about saying so in public and private, and actively engage family, friends, colleagues, clergy, elected officials, news reporters, anyone else who evinces doubt about the compatibility of evolution and religious belief. Lack of knowledge is no longer an excuse, given the rich resources recently provided by such writers as Beatrice Brutto, Dennis Edwards, Stephen Godfrey, John Hout, Ken Miller, Michael Roos, Patricia Williams, and many others, most of them reviewed or otherwise represented in these pages. Now, missing from this list of authors that struck me were people like Michael Behe, who is an evolutionist, and yet is a proponent of intelligent design. Why isn't Michael Behe included in a list like this? Or William Dembski, who is also a prominent intelligent design advocate, but also thinks that this is compatible with evolutionary biology, that you can have evolution and yet also have an argument for an intelligent designer of the universe. So those folks are quietly sort of not mentioned here, oddly enough, in this list. Now, he goes on to say, this is not a false irenicism, smoothing over fundamental differences, between creationists and evolutionists just to quiet the controversy. In truth, many, perhaps most, evolutionists are theists of one sort or another. Now, that is a remarkable statement, I think. Most, he says, evolutionists are theists. Their views are as sincerely and validly held as those of the atheists and have as much, perhaps more, claim to be representative of evolutionist thinking. Theists are justifiably tired of having the folks on both ends of the spectrum pretend they don't exist, presumed by atheists, presumed to be atheists by the creationists, and presumptuously spoken for by the real atheists. He says, is my proposal basically a tactical one? Of course it is, because the old tactics have failed to achieve more than a courtroom stalemate, while the soul of creationism is marching on in churches, classrooms, political campaigns, and the rest of society. We have been fighting the wrong war with the wrong weapons. If we are content to rest on our courtroom victories, we will end up as we did in Vietnam, or as Sitting Bull supposedly said after the Little Bighorn, we have won a great battle but lost a great war. To really protect education from creationism's inroads, it has to be marginalized, not just scientifically and legally, but theologically. The atheists among us cannot do that. The voices of other evolutionists need to be heard. There are many such voices out there. Let's start putting them front and center. So I thought this was quite a remarkable change of strategy by the National Center for Science Education that is proposed here, admitting that most evolutionists are in fact theists, contrary to what Dawkins and all the rest of these fellows say. Evolutionary biology doesn't disprove God's existence. It's compatible with theism. Moreover, we need to put the theists out in the forefront as representatives of evolutionary theory. And what he doesn't seem to realize, as I say, is that this opens the door for intelligent design, because most of your intelligent design advocates, like Dembski, Behe, and others, admit that theistic evolution is compatible with intelligent design, that you can make an inference to a designer of the universe as the best explanation of biological complexity, all along with granting the common descent from primordial ancestors. So it's very interesting to see how this strategy, I think, will play itself out, and whether or not, in fact, these folks really do prove open-minded enough to allow intelligent design advocates to be part of this public face that they want to have.
For more resources from Dr. William Lane Craig, visit our website at reasonablefaith.org. You'll find articles, debates, audio-video downloads, and much more. That's reasonablefaith.org.